Right, hello, I'm streaming via Opera again today because obviously that seems to actually work, unlike Chrome at the moment. So, yeah, I've got the Polish RS-70 wall mounted. The only problem was that the cable with the probe kept making a really bad connection. Similar problem to the DP66, where basically the cables inside the wire were really, really loose. So what I've done at the moment is just basically ripped the probe from the cabling. So if I want to, I can crop clip all the probe up, or hopefully get a new cable for it, which would be the easiest thing. Because yeah, the actual probe with all the GM tubes in it itself is completely fine. It's just for whatever reason, where the wires, I guess, have been wound up for 30 years or something during the Cold War. Oh, older than that, because this is 1970 something. This guy counts dated, so yeah, it's nearly 50 years old. So at the moment, it's just on doing its circuit check function. I can't really demonstrate it on this one other than do much. So yeah, so what it's doing at the moment, you'll see the video on it on Sunday, but it's just doing the circuit check. So I've just got it running off two wires where I could plug it into a 12 or 20 volt socket connection. But how I'm doing it, I've just daisy clipped at the moment two 9-volt batteries together, like that. And then it's just running off of two power leads. So at the moment, it's just doing a circuit check. I'll see if the alarm functions now, because to start with, the alarm didn't function, but this will be loud if it works. Yeah, there we go. So I'll turn that off, because a bit of an irritating noise, isn't it? But yeah, that's the alarm function. So it's just doing the circuit check. But what it would do is, say we put it on normal background mode, you just have it running off of there, and then what it does is that's where it'd be monitoring using that. I don't know if you can see, if I jig those cables, you might actually see a bit of life out of the Geiger. Actually, what I can show you, I don't mind doing this right now. I won't obviously hold it there for the entire thing, but if you push this up to the connection, I might need to put a little plug on it first. Because yeah, it's a 7-pin connector, where it was originally in the vehicle mount. It had like an 8-meter cable on it, but the problem was, as I said, the cable was so ancient, all the wires inside were really deteriorating, so it might be a bit of a fire hazard as well. I shouldn't get an electric shock doing this, because things should be grounded. Is it that way around? Let's set it to socket 1. Yeah, there we go. I don't know if that's visible, obviously, on the camera, but the thing is actually moving at the moment. So that's background radiation, but obviously I'm not going to hold it there the entire stream. Yeah, you can actually, do that there, but yeah, as I said, I'll just leave it running like that for now, just so it looks interesting in the background with the light on. So yeah, I'll go to the chat now, and because my dad owed me some money, I found out I've got a DPFree on order now. Right, I'll start trying to answer questions now, because obviously I've missed any while I've been up there. Thank you very much, Chris from HR. He says, this donation was in part funded by Rishi Sunak, what, using your furlough money, or whatever, a bit like the Trump bucks. But thank you very much, I appreciate it. But yeah, so I've got a DPFree coming, which can't measure background levels, unlike that one, unfortunately, but the DPFree at least goes up to 500 Rontgen per hour, so there's always that. No, I don't play guitar at all, really. I'm not very well. I bought electric guitar at one point and an amp, and learned a tiny bit, but never really got into it. Piano was the only instrument I ever learned properly. Shahir, as far as I'm aware, if you buy any gas masks like that as surplus in the UK, you can take them out the country fine. I mean, whether or not you could take them into certain countries if they had laws against masks, I don't know, but yeah, I watched the SpaceX thing. I didn't watch it docking today or whenever that was, but I did watch it, yeah, taking off yesterday. AliExpress, RC guy. as in, you know, AliExpress, Alibaba, the Chinese place for buying stuff. Cheers, Henry. As I said before, it's just that Bethesda one that was being sold in Primark, because, you know, they own the rights to Doom now, so they cover from the original Doom. But yeah, it's a good shirt, especially because it's a $5. For a $5, it's brilliant. But yeah, I said that wall mount and Geiger's cool, but the issue's mostly going to be wiring the cable up. I mean, obviously, if I want to, I could just literally get 7 croc clips and put 7 croc clips on the probe to the other thing. Right, we're not going to talk too much about politics if people keep trying to bring up politics on this stream, because obviously we're straight into it. People on about politics. I'll show you what the inside of the probe looks like, actually, for people interested. Because if you're into Geiger counters, you'll probably find this interesting. Now, do I have a flat head handy? Yeah, I do. Right, good. We need to take this screw off here. And then we can open the probe housing up. It will twist off after that. Slightly magnetized screw. Right. Alright, so there you go. That's the probe assembly. So this only actually uses 2 GM tubes. You've got your SBM20 for, I guess, the lower radiation ranges, most of the millirontgen ranges. Then a Polish DOB50, which is the tube for the up to 200 Rontgen range, which is pretty similar to a Soviet SI3BG or whatever they're called. Let me put this light on so you can see that a bit better. And that bit, so I think, so it only works when the housing's on it, like a ground. Obviously some resistors and everything on the back there. Hello, Rajiv. Hello, Ghost Jesus. Haven't seen you on in a while, Rajiv. But yeah, so that's that. Obviously, the housing is just to stop beta radiation getting in. So then, should suck it into one bit. There we go. That's the bit it's meant to go in. Then we'll put the collar back on, wherever I put the collar. There it is. And then, yeah, you would normally have this on a cable mounted on the front of a tank or whatever. Or, you know, sticking out a bunker. But, a lot, 7SE. I don't know how many total, especially if you include just radiation instruments in general, not just Geiger counters. Yeah, but you're not going to be able to use that, are you, Justin Vapor? Because the ID11 is the little metal one. You won't make any use of it unless you buy the reader, and you've not bought the reader, have you, for it? I haven't played Doom Eternal at all, Roger. I like the old Dooms. But yeah, the probe's pretty hefty with this. It's similar to a DP66 probe, but obviously it's for that one. But yeah, it's quite good, the DPS. It just has the typical problem of being, you know, old Polish communist Warsaw stock, where Warsaw Pact stock, where it's not all as robust as the Soviet gear. What, for the thing, Steve? Yes, but if you heard earlier, I said the issue is the cables were so frayed and old, they're a hazard using them. And like the electricity kept cutting out, and I got an electric shock when using it with the cable. So, like I said, I've dismantled the cables now, and I'll just have to rewire it or see if I can get some newer cables for it. So I've got it running off of just 2 basically test lead type things, because that's safer than using the old cable that came with it. All right, Steve. Yeah, it's just the problem is with obviously the cables were from the 1970s, and they'd been obviously stored up and coiled in the warehouse for probably 40 odd years. So the issue was that obviously where the rubber and that had deteriorated and the wires had gone quite a bit inside the cables, I got a few shocks and things from using it, including one which is like a 500-volt shock holding the probe, and I couldn't let it go. You know, you're going like that with it in your hand. That's fine, but, you know, so I'm just not using the cables that came with it. I don't know how much power you need to run an air filtration system, Iron Man. That's the problem. You'd have to ask somebody who's into electronics enough to know how much you'd need for running an air filter. King don't make anything. They're just a company that sells other stuff like Myra rebranded for too much money. Yeah, I've not done loads today other than getting most of that mount up, you know, and all finished. Because unfortunately, I was hoping it would just be a case of putting it in and it would rock in and lock into the thing properly, and it didn't. So I've had to cable tie it at the top, which you might just be able to see. And then I've put Velcro on the back of it. So I've stuck Velcro onto the back of the Backlight, or the sort of wood. And then there's Velcro inside the metal bit, so it sort of Velcros on to, you know, keep some of it on more. Yeah, good evening to everybody joining. Don't forget to like the stream and everything. Yeah, it's good, isn't it, Dylan? But thank you. If you're looking at that, that's a wall-mounted Geiger counter, hence the title of the stream, Rajiv. Although I've not got the probe on it because I need to rewire the probe up to it. But it does sort of work. No, I wouldn't use them personally, Brandon. From what I know of them, they're like just cheap Chinese stuff that's rebranded. Because it's interesting. You don't need video games either, do you? In all honesty, you probably play them. Yeah, you can make new cables, Steve, but if you didn't hear what I said, I've already bought some new cables anyway. You know, I've got some other stuff coming. If not, I'm just going to get like 7 croc clips, you know, put a croc clip on each of those, put in a croc clip to the corresponding one inside and run it like that. But yeah, it's a bit of a weird thing because it obviously has several positive and negative lines running from it. Some supply power, some, you know, supply the information essentially coming off of it. No, I can't show the S10. But yeah, everybody else all right? I said I've not done all that much today other than just spending a lot of time doing like the DIY of putting that up, you know, and finding every time you go to do a little bit of it, you get one step further and then run into another complication. The only thing I can think of, Chris, that you're on about is like a Papa system type thing. Is that what you're on about? Yeah, that's why you need to always know what size you need in the mask, because if you just buy a random size, yeah, it might be too small, too big. Yeah, it looks good. If I turn a light off, you'll probably see the backlight on it. It's only an incandescent bulb, so it doesn't look as good as, you know, some of them would. But you might be able to see there that the, yeah, it's got the backlight on it. See, if I do the circuit check, you'll see there where it will do the thing. You know, and it will keep repeating the circuit check function. Can you actually see the needle moving on there in the dark? Or is it too, like, low res? Because I can see it quite easily with my eye here, using that little lamp. And of course, like I was saying before, it's got that really bright UV backlight screen on there, which you might be able to see there. Look, I can charge it up using that pretty quickly. But yeah, so that's a cool thing anyway. I don't know if it's going to react at all to that light if I had that. It's picking it up a little bit, I think, from here. But yeah, it would need to be more frontal to it, I think, to really pick that one up. But, yeah. I'll turn the main light on again. I just thought that was quite interesting with the well, I was saying that the lighting looks quite cool, doesn't it? Where you've got the just the UV on, because it actually makes the white sort of things in the room light up more. That means they're a mod. Although, I don't know if you'll be able to see this on the camera, but something funny, because the resistors, I think it's the resistors, in the times 0.1, was it the times 10? Or, it's working now. Hang on. That'll work. Right, never mind. This is working perfectly now, I think. Oh yeah, cool. Right, yeah, because one of the issues I had with that was it kept going off the charts on certain things, but it turns out that's fine now. I guess it was just it had to be turned on and running long enough. That's probably the FM12 Bolding Towski that the police are using there. You need a P3, P100 filter Skullman Gaming for pepper spray and tear gas because it's particle threats. But yeah, so yeah, that's good. That's working properly now. So as soon as I've got the you know, probe rewired up to it, shame I don't have just loads of crop clips in this room, because if I did, I could just crop clip the probe up properly now and demonstrate the entire thing working. But yeah, so that's working perfectly now, which is good. Because yeah, what you end up seeing is when the video comes out for that on Wednesday, a lot of the functions don't work. So I'm going to have to pin a comment and say most of these functions work absolutely fine on it now. It was just a weird thing of, I guess, having to run power through it for long enough before those functions started working. eBay, but there's no more for sale, unfortunately, I don't think, from the seller I got mine from. I know, because I watched it, Stephen. As in vacuum tubes, Steve. Sort of. It's that period where they were moving away from vacuum tubes. But yeah, if you mean, is it an old analog like circuit board? Yes. So I think it could be moisture that's had to like obviously cook itself out the system in a sense. I know of a lot of Soviet like what's the name of them? The DP5 series. You generally have to run them on like a battery for ages after they've been mothballed, just so all the circuits start coming back online. That's cool, Rajiv. Yep. Is today's video if you watch it. I've heard, Henry, that with some foam heads can damage masks, but I've never seen any evidence of it. Just be careful not to stretch a mask too much. If you're putting like a mask on, say like a GP5 or whatever, obviously it's going to start stretching the rubber if it's on the head for too long. Yeah, it was strange, Steve, though, that some functions worked, because how that was happening, it made me think that, you know, what's the word? That, you know, like maybe some resistors had gone, because I'm quite used to old radiation equipment where certain ranges don't work because the resistors for those ranges are burnt out, so they just make a circuit, so it immediately maxes out. But yeah, it might have just been a case of it needed to run off a battery power for a few hours or something, or, you know, mains power, but But yeah, that's the nice thing, at least. It does seem to be working now. So when I eventually get it wired up properly with the probe, It will be good for having on in the background, although it's going to be a bit too low res for you to see the display, but I think it looks nice, especially if I tidy all the wires up and that later on, which I will do. So, you know, it's more, you'll just see it glowing in the background. They blew up a new nuclear reactor, Dylan, through a flaw with it and a stupid safety test that was, you know, like they shouldn't have run. So what ended up happening, they, you know, essentially overloaded the reactor. It massively went up in pressure. It exploded. The reactors, you know, the inside of the reactor went everywhere. Therefore, you know, several nuclear bombs worth of radiation and lots and lots and lots of stuff that needed to be cleaned up. That's cool, Benjamin. I know there's quite a few weird things like that where there's like cold weather clothes or like winter clothes that act as tents or like emergency shelters as well. Yeah, if you put a face form in it for long enough, Henry, it might go back to its original shape. But yeah, that's an issue of a lot of masks if they've been stored in a satchel or just like, you know, in a pile of masks for ages. Recently, yes. Wow. I certainly got higher radiation levels, you know, where I was. What, the Geiger counter on the wall, do you mean? Yes. If you didn't see it, I'll flick the light off again so you can see it in the dark. Although I've not got this wired up to it at the moment, so technically it's not working, but everything on it does seem to be working now. You know, if I manually hold this on there. So, if I just do that again. There you go, you can see it responding to background radiation if I hold this in place there. I think the battery's draining a bit now. Or is that the bulb going? Circuit check's still right. I think that's the bulb going in it, actually. Yeah, it's still doing the power check, all right. But yeah, the bulb's going. I have to replace the bulb at some point in there. That's an easy enough job to do. Because it's an old incandescent bulb, so it's probably just burnt out. Now it's actually been used. But yeah. No, there's no problem with the stream. If you're having problems watching YouTube videos, it seems to be Chrome at the moment that's the issue. I assume the batteries are still pulling the voltage they should be pulling. Oh, the bulb looks alright again now. Weird. It is an old incandescent in there, so they're never the best, you know, bulbs in the world. Let's just try all the ranges again. See, that one's doing that again. See what that's doing? Where I've got on times 10. It's going off the scale. Wonder if it will sort itself out if I leave it on that scale long enough. Let me leave it on there and see what happens. But yeah, so they're interesting things to play about with anyway. Yeah, you've got to love, haven't you, the old Soviet tech, or like, you know, that era. I was saying that my favourite one for clunky switches is the MD3, just because that's literally the... Listen to how clunky that one is, you know. But, yeah. That's weird, though, that was working earlier, now isn't working again. Oh, if that drops off and stays down, then that might be working. I reckon, yeah, it could be just something that needs power running through it long enough on one of the settings. Yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to CNC Remastered. If people have questions, ask the question. Don't say, I have a question, because then you're not asking the question, are you? You're wasting a comment saying you have a question. Right, in terms of things like, would a GP5 protect you? For non-really, harsh CBRN things, if the GP5 is in good condition, Chris, it would certainly protect you if you had a good filter with it and all that. The issue is I wouldn't really ever want to recommend GP5s for serious use to people just because of how old they are and, how different the quality control might have been, how they've been stored, In terms of when the Soviets built them at the time, were they good enough for stuff? Yes. By today's standards, do they meet a lot of standards? Not by a mile, and then if they've not been stored very well, not at all. But if you had a GP5, let's say even with the old green filter on it, as much as it's not safe to breathe through, if it was kept in good condition, yeah, that would work against tear gas. What's the coolest gas mask I have? My favourite's the Avon CT12. All right, Mike. Yeah, I was tired yesterday, but then not so tired today. It was quite strange, but... have you not seen what's going on in America? Well, we won't make it political, Steve, but at the moment, I think a lot of people are protesting or, going to see what's going on at them. We even had some in London today in the UK, despite, it not happening in the UK, what they were all protesting about, which is very strange, in my opinion. But... in the UK, it is currently 2026. What's the temperature meant to be in this thing then, Stephen, knowing? Because the thing is, I imagine if it got too hot or too cold, you'd die anyway. Because that would, I just imagine would, even if you're in a bunker, if it's far too hot for an extended period outside or in cold, you're going to die from exposure reasons. Now you can swear, Brandon. As long as people don't say anything like racist or offensive to groups of people, I don't mind when people swear or anything. I assume your thing lagged then when you said that, Miss Valadez. Yeah, because say you don't normally spam stuff. Tomorrow the lockdowns eased a bit more, but a lot of them releasing lockdown restrictions now is just literally because government people were caught breaking the rules, so now they're rushing out to go, oh no, we can relax the laws because they didn't want to get done for it. Fred's Landfair or Ian Fair, however your name's pronounced, Fred's. Yeah, Steve, what I'm saying, that's the point, is if there was some extreme event like that, I don't think you'd survive anyway, whether it be because of no oxygen, no temperature. That was my point. No. I just find it interesting, Benjamin. Yeah, what range is it on now? That's a good sign. That's currently, although like I say, it's not running on off the probe, but I know the probe works fine anyway when I was testing the probe. It's currently on 0.2 on that scale now, so it is slowly going down to 0 again. Let's just go off of it and go back on and see if it stops where it stopped before. I don't know what that does. It looks like it might be a lamp or might not. I don't actually know. Right, that's still at low end. That's still low. So at the moment, it's just that range, which isn't actually going to the lowest setting like it should do. So yeah, I'll just leave it on there till it hopefully warms up enough that it works properly. I don't have an SGE 400, so I can't really recommend anything about it to you. I mean, surely if it's a strap, you just do the reverse of what you did to tighten them, don't you? Yeah, it's called a PAPR system or PAPR system, Benjamin. In theory, it might reland us, actually. But I know, like, there's nothing you can do to protect yourself from cosmic radiation. Isn't there one extinction theory that basically there'll be a massive solar radiation flare that's so high, you know, it just basically gives everybody acute radiation syndrome? I think so. So obviously it's not a good thing. Because, like, in London today, there were lots of people, you know, like, protesting. They were doing it peacefully, but no social distancing, you know, so not good. And again, like I said, why are they protesting in the UK about American police, you know, brutality or whatever? It's nothing to do with us. I don't know if I'm going to be on a full hour tonight, just saying that, but you know, but yeah, the good news is that all works at least. Yeah, Peach, thank you for bringing up something interesting to talk about. Yes, the cutlass is lovely, isn't it? Sadly, I don't have it in this room at the moment, or I'd get out and wave it about like I was doing yesterday, but I've not got it in this room because I was playing with it in another room, giggity, earlier. But yeah, that cutlass is lovely, I reckon. They do a much more expensive version, but that's actually because it's got gold trim on. I was looking, why does Windlass do the same cutlass, but one's really expensive for the exact same sword, and there's actually one that uses gold in it rather than like brass. All right, thanks for letting me know, Mike. I'll watch a film then later. I have to work out what I'm going to watch, but I'd like to watch another horror film. I don't know yet, though, what it will be. All right, Ron. So, you can't really see it very well at this angle, but I am pleased to say the wall-mounted Geiger system, other than the fact I need to wire the probe up to it properly, is all working fine now. Yeah, people can donate to the channel if they want to, Apollo Rogers, which obviously I always appreciate when people do. They can either do it via Patreon or Super Chats. If somebody donates something and says, you know, can you do a video on this, I try and do it if possible, because obviously it's nice if somebody's donated. There's a Discord people can get access to if they donate, but at the moment we've not really been having as many people on it just because there's been a lot of like weird shit going on regarding that. So yes, I think it depends. I think sometimes, Balding Telsky, you sometimes find swords you just really like, you know, that just seem the right kind of weight and length, you know, that you just get on with them, and some you don't. No, I've not actually got Netflix. All right, glad you enjoyed it, Benjamin. Yeah, my favourite bayonet is the Swiss ones, the Sturmgewehr 57 bayonets. At least the ones you can get easily for reasonable prices, but they either have wooden or plastic or Bakelite handles, depending on which period they were made, and they're just like a very big, long stainless steel bayonet that, you know, it's a classic bayonet in the sense it's, you can obviously tell what it's designed to do. It's not one that's designed to, you know, oh, it's actually like a little utility knife, you know. I don't think you'd have much use, some CBRN for a spike bayonet, in all honesty, because other than like where people were saying about the spike bayonets on the what are they called? Oh, what's the name of them? The SKS, you know, where it could be used as a bipod or, you know, like a monopod, really, not a bipod and all that, as well as the bayonet. spike bayonets are kind of just designed for stabbing stuff, and that's like the only thing they can do. Most people who end up liking bayonets for actual use end up liking AK style knives, you know, like the ones where they've got the wire cutter on and everything else. You know, so you can, if I can get it there you go. So, you know, you can do that with it, use it as a wire cutter. Yeah, that's the nice thing about them, Ron, because the weird thing in the UK is, like, obviously you can get AK bayonets cheap because they were mass produced, and you can get these Swiss bayonets, you know, for a reasonable price. You can get these for like £40 each or whatever. But for some stupid reason, like SLR bayonets and lots of other bayonets, even ones that should be more common than these, or, you know, just as common as like these bayonets, are like £100 to £200 for what, like a knife that's like that long, you know, that's just a boring looking knife. So yeah, it's a very nice peach. It's obviously one that's designed, you know, so you can grip it just as well in your hand as if it was mounted on the rifle. But yeah, it's one that, you know, is basically designed to be used, I think, in hand-to-hand combat if need be. Another thing I noticed with this is that you could actually definitely use this in its scabbard as like a little baton, because that, you know, would really fucking sting if you got hit like that. Oh, you meant the AK one? I prefer this one. But yeah, this is, you know, fuck. Yeah, that is actually, could be used in a less lethal way. That's pretty good, actually, that one. But yeah, anyway, that's very much a sidetrack thing, isn't it, about bludgeoning with bayonets, because they're not designed for that. But yeah, K98 bayonets. There's lots of cool bayonets. It's just over here, lots of them end up being so overpriced for what they are, you know. Yeah, that's the point, Ron, because like I can understand if it's like a very limited model bayonet or it's really old, you know, why some of them go for a lot of money. But what I can't figure out is like why some of the most common rifles of the 20th century, you know, where you think they must have had similar numbers of bayonets made to the amount of rifles, you know, completely mass-produced bayonets, you know, where they were in the millions, especially when they're not very nice, you know, knives or bayonets on their own, like why people think they're worth hundreds of dollars or pounds. Because it's like, the L1A1 SLR bayonet is basically quite similar to an AK bayonet without a wire cutter on when I've seen pictures of them. You know, it's got like that bit on there, it's got the lug on it. No wire cutter, it's just like a little knife like this. But lots of people want 200 odd quid for these, and you think, what a rip-off, you know. Well, like same as Valadez, like £200, £300, sort of, you know, for a cheap bayonet. That's not No, I don't really collect medals. I've got a Liquidator medal just because I was really interested in the history of them, and obviously they were mass produced and didn't give out as many as they thought they might have to. But I don't really like the idea of collecting like medals and, you know, like some worn uniforms, just because it, even if I wouldn't wear it, you know, it feels a bit stolen valor to me. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that people who buy them have that intention. It's just for me, I don't really like the idea of getting them. Yeah, that's crazy, Ron, isn't it? Are they the ones that like use the M16 or whatever, the M9 bayonets? But I know it's just like the little simple double-edged knife type bayonet, isn't it? I'm trying to remember which room I've got the Liquidator medal in, because if it was handy, I'd actually show it you right now, but I can't remember if it was stored in here. I think, yeah. Here we go. I think this is where I stored it. Yep. There you go. So yeah, that's like one of the few medals I actually bought. Flick the light on so you can see it. Vladimir, just in time to see this, because you'd actually be able to read that, wouldn't you? Writing around the outside if it focuses. There you go. But obviously, it shows the alpha, beta, and gamma hitting the blood or whatever on the medal. See if I can put my hand behind it like that so it actually focuses. But yeah, they made loads of these. Yeah, like I was saying, my personal opinion with medals is I don't really like buying them. I just got the Chernobyl one before the TV series came out, and they went crazy in price just because, you know. it's quite an interesting bit of history. And this wasn't an issued one. It was just where they had lots and lots left in warehouses. And obviously, I don't go around wearing it or anything, you know, stupid like that. As I said, it's just something to talk about the history of the actual item. But yeah, that's the Chernobyl Medal anyway. No, I said I don't really collect uniforms. I've got some camo stuff, but I don't really collect uniforms. And the camo stuff is more because it's practical to wear. So you can do a video on how cool do you think this camo is. And, you know, you can wear it around the house or when you go out on a hike or something, you know. I'm not American, Stephen, am I? It would look very weird if I had an American flag up in the background, despite the fact I'm not American, you know. That's not, Stephen, it's not the DPS 68 M1, it's just a standard DPS 68, but yes, but the issue is the wiring in the actual, you know, big 8-meter cable was all like screwed and gave me an electric shock, but the actual probe is still in fine condition. I didn't put the other screw back in it, did I? So I can actually... Yeah, thank you very much for the translation, Vladimir. But yeah, the probe's absolutely fine. It works absolutely fine, you know, but I have to either hold it or tape it to the thing. But it looks like that's slowly going back down to 0, which is good. So it looks like after it's been left on long enough, that should work entirely. That I'd mostly just use eBay to buy everything. I sometimes use Etsy now and again, actually, now, just because sometimes you can find, especially with like the old Warsaw Pact Geiger counters, sometimes people who ship them directly from like Ukraine or Belarus fairly cheaply. Cool. Which one's AIP68? And is there any major differences between any of the DPS models? Because they all have the same ranges, don't they? I mean, I suppose in theory, if you were getting any of them, you'd probably want the latest model of it. It doesn't come up with anything when I search that. Test unit. What is it? One where you plug it in and then you can make the thing give a reading. Yeah. I know what you mean, like a trainer unit. That Canadian Radiac there's the trainer unit, where you'd have a wire running into it and then the instructor sets a reading and you have to read it off. I've got a DP75 in the other room as well. You know, and I really like the DP75, but I know the problem a lot of people have with the Polish Geiger counters, like Hype says a lot, is that they don't seem as robust as the Russian ones, like the Soviet ones. So like every time I've ever bought a DP5 or whatever, they always work. The Polish ones are a lot more fragile, you know. I think the Polish ones seem a bit more mechanically nicely engineered, but, you know, in terms of running DP5s, depends on the model of it. Some are very expensive, some are quite cheap. Depends on what model it is, how mass-produced it was. Does the seller want a reasonable amount of money for it? Weirdly, I ordered one of those, Stephen, today. Even though I should have been saving my money, but I found out I was getting a bit more from somebody than I expected. So, yeah, I caved and ordered a DP-free. Question for you, Stephen, you might know. Can you use the same cables on the DP-free as the DPS68, you know, like the connectors to this? Because if so, then if the cables come in all right condition with the DP-free, I'll just wire them up. But I know the DP-free actually uses an ion chamber, doesn't it? Not a Geiger probe, which is interesting. Although I will have to take it apart and have a good look at it, because I've not seen any pictures online where people have really shown sort of much to do with the DP-free. Cool, Jamie. I'm glad you find the videos useful. Yeah, percussive maintenance, exactly, Vladimir. Soviet stuff, I think you can drop and it works, not necessarily the Polish ones. But yeah, the Soviet stuff I found in general is very robust. You know, it's good because an idiot like me can not break them. So, you know. Yeah, I need to get around to doing a video on the DP5A as well at some point, because I've got the DP5A and not done a video on that yet. I'm glad you find it useful, Justin, because you know, it goes both ways. I think it's nice to be able to do these and talk to people. You know, sometimes it can be a bit frustrating, but most of the time I do really enjoy doing these. In terms of practicality, Keegan, out of all the ones I've used, the DP5V is the most practical. Just because, you know, the DP5 series takes a couple of batteries inside it. You can still get the batteries, but they're harder to get now for it. And DP5s do basically background radiation all the way up to 200 Rontgen per hour. The DP5V is a bit more practical just because it's a more modern version of it, you know, but they're all really good. The thing I like with the DP5V is a lot of them have the probe with the strontium-90 in the actual probe. So you basically twist a bit on it and then it starts giving you the reading. So your check source is built in, and you just twist it away when you don't want to have, you know. We've not technically fully left the EU yet, Stephen, unfortunately. I don't have any. I get on fine with European people, but, you know, again, we don't want to get too much into politics, do we, on these? But the EU is kind of a big bureaucratic bloc. That's the problem. All right, cool. Yeah, lots of masks, although unfortunately at the moment, lots of them are silly prices, aren't they? So. Yeah, well, that makes total sense, doesn't it, Vladimir? For those of you who aren't reading the chat, Vladimir says, he says, that's due conscription of many rural locals from southern republics, basically farmers who live some primitive lifestyle. Soviet equipment ought to bear that handling. Exactly. The thing is, as well, I like, is a lot of Soviet stuff, you can work out how it works without reading a manual, you know? So rather than me having to go, oh, I need to find a translation of this manual, it's just like, oh, this is completely self-evident of what I need to do with it. So you just literally, you know, you just dial it on. Oh, it works as you expect it to work. Yeah, I watched the SpaceX launch yesterday. I didn't watch it docking of the space station today or whenever that was, but I did watch it. What's that, Chernobyl, Keegan, or something else? Yeah, it's good you got some, but yeah, that's the problem, Jamie, at the moment, isn't it? So many masks have just gone up so ridiculously in price. Mostly Chris from HR, yes. Just because it was literally mostly a case of, you know, suddenly lots and lots of people wanted masks and there weren't enough masks around. Or sellers thought, oh, I can get a lot more money for a mask now because of coronavirus. I still need to check that out. Quite a few people have recommended it. I've just not got round to, you know, looking at it yet. Did the person ever answer me if the DP-free cable will also fit on the DPS68? Because is it the same type of pin connector? Like a 7-pin connector? That's what I want to know. Finish M61's a brilliant mask, though. Capacitor tester. What I do have, Vladimir, which is a bit like that, is a multimeter. But let's see exactly what you mean by a capacitor tester, so I know the exactly what you mean, because I know, yeah, a lot of capacitors do go with age, don't they? And resistors and everything else, but I found Soviet ones, though, tend to be really robust, actually. Search with Google. Ah, yeah, a multimeter. Yep. I've got a multimeter. I've shown it before in a couple of videos, and I've been playing about with some of the British and American things. Oh, capacitor leakage tester. Okay, let's Google that then. Capacitor. I'll have to end up getting one separate thing, right? Capacitor leakage tester. If I can get it to select that. Search. Right, I'll have to look into that properly, because all the things I'm looking at the moment are just coming up. I guess it thinks I mean a multimeter. So yeah, I'll have to look into that. Capacitor leakage tester. Anyway, I'll be off in a few minutes, but thanks everybody. It's been quite a good stream tonight. But yeah, the good news is, although when the video ends up coming out on that on Wednesday, a lot more of the functions work now compared to what, used to be the case when I did the video on it, because I basically said, I'm going to have to play about with this a lot more to see if a lot more of the functions work. But saying that, the power draw's gone a bit low from those batteries now. Right, I'll flick it off. But yeah, I said I wasn't really running it properly. But yeah, I am gonna get that plugged into a 12-volt plug at some point. But the highest Geiger I've got that reads in Rontgen displays, and do you mean actual Geiger counters? The Polish the Polish DP75 I've got goes to 500 Rontgen per hour, dose equivalent, based on, I think, cobalt 60 dose equivalent. It's not a Geiger counter, but US CDV 720s. Like that, and CDV 715s go up to 500 Rontgen, but they're ionization chambers. I don't think I've got any that go over 500 Rontgen, but the highest one I actually know of is the US CDV 718, and the US military radiac equivalents of it went up to 10,000 Rontgen in terms of measurements. But everybody uses sieverts and greys now rather than Rontgens on thing, because Rontgen's quite an old measurement. Yeah, thank you everybody. It's been a good stream. I'll be off now, but yeah, the good thing is that's mostly working, so it's really just going to be when I get this wired up to it properly. There'll be a wall-mounted Geiger that will always be on in the background. I've got a modern digital one over there. It's just that looks way cooler having an old retro box unit one up there. Anyway, yeah, see you all. Hope everybody has a good evening. Thanks everybody, and stay safe, obviously. Right, goodbye. And end stream.